Hi, I'm Jessica Ardeel with the Professional Healers Institute. Thank you for tuning in to crack the code of your body's intelligence, because today's featured health expert has over 30 years in cardiac nursing, oncology, critical care. She is the owner and operator of Misch Inspired Health, and I'm thrilled that she's on the expert panel with us. Thank you for joining us, Lynn Misch. I'm so happy to connect with you. There's so much I want to cover. We in full disclosure, we do talk a lot. We took levels 1 through 4 in Touch for Health together, all about muscle testing. And actually, I've never even asked, was that the first introduction you had with muscle testing in Touch for Health?
No,
or
actually,
what was your first experience?
no, my first experience was when I saw your mom for the first time. And that was my first experience with muscle testing. And what was really interesting about that is that I can remember being with me and telling me at the time, because I'd never been exposed to really an integrative modality at that point in time. I'd been like exposed to massage. I had read a lot about different kinds of treatments, but muscle testing was really foreign to me. And so for the very first time, Suzanne had me laying on a massage table and she was muscle testing me, and she had to stop and she looked at me and she said, "Your body isn't consistent. It's lying to me about where you are." And I had gone through, at that point in time, I was rather scared because I had just had an arthroscopic surgery on my right knee from a sledding accident with my kids. And about, that was January the 27th, 2006, and on 2005, and on January the 1st, 2006, I found a tumor in my left breast. And so I was really, really very unsure of where my health status was at. And for whatever reason, I talked to Sunday Renintz, who was a pharmacist and nutritionist. And I said, "Sunday, if it were you, what would you do?" And she said, "I would call Suzanne." And so I did. So I went up to see Suzanne, and she was muscle testing me, and she stopped in the middle of it. And she looked at me and she said, "You know what?" She said, "Your body isn't consistent with what's going on with you." And I'm like, I didn't know what she was talking about. I really didn't understand it at all. And so she then did some different things and reset me so that my body, when she muscle tested me, it started being accurate as far as testing on and testing off. So when she was asking me questions, it was reliable. But she said the problem being is that my head was so strong, and I was really disconnected from my body at that point. And I was just learning to listen to it when all of these events occurred. I always thought I was connected to it because I was a long distance runner and an athlete and all these different things. And I really didn't realize how disconnected I was from my body at that point. It was really interesting. And so it was funny when she told me these things, because I kind of looked at her and I thought, well, this is really strange. But then she retested me, and she used muscle testing, and it became a reliable indicator for her. And it was like, that was my first launch into what muscle testing and really understanding the connection between the mind and body, because I didn't get it before that. I thought I did. I was a practitioner in it. I was a nurse, and I had worked in caring for people for years, but I did not really connect to my own body at that point in time. Although my body was giving me messages that I didn't really understand. It was interesting. So she really opened the gateway to me really learning and understanding muscle testing.
And so was that what made you want to learn more about it, is how you felt then reconnected with those parts of yourself?
Well, it was a process, I think. It was a process into all of it, because I can remember the first day I spent with her, and I spent like 4 hours with her. And she was really looking at different areas of my body and using different methodologies of treatment to align my systems. And I can remember telling her, it was really interesting, that I had like palpitations for about a year, and I would get short of breath, and I really didn't understand what any of this was about. It was really an interesting process. And it was years later, when I was getting acupuncture, and I was standing in my acupuncturist's office, Patty Folan, and I was looking at her chart, her acupuncture chart. And I noted that on the chart, there was a point on the pericardium, which was where the breast tumor was sitting in my left breast. And it was like the light bulb came on because I understood that pathway to why my heart was having palpitations, because it was sitting right on the pericardium. There's like different lines in the body in acupuncture, which is when we muscle test with QRA, you use those different pathways because all of your organs have a pathway. The reason I understood it was I was a cardiac nurse and I understood electrical current. And so the whole body is electrical current. And so when I was working with it, and as I was evolving into this practice with Suzanne, because I was doing a healing practice for myself, incorporating nutrition and incorporating different strategies of how to heal along with traditional medicine. So I was integrating both. And so it was a whole learning adventure from two different realities or two different processes of medicine, because I was using very, very allopathic medicine, and yet I was using functional medicine and integrating those two together. And so, but I always, as I said, I went to school, I studied for years, practiced on people, and didn't really, until it was my own issue, connect my body to what was happening to it. And so it was an interesting process to go through, and I really, the muscle testing was really a whole journey into understanding another aspect of myself that I really didn't know. Was fascinating. And I use it today all the time. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I'm really, really excited you're speaking with us, is because you've lived and breathed and worked in that Western medical model. And we absolutely need that integrative piece that you and your own journey inspired. And so what can you share with us about how we can better integrate both of those, as you said, realities?
Well, I think it's really, I think it's understanding the differences between the two. When we really look at, and I think I was just having this discussion. It was interesting the other day because I was having a discussion with the physician, and we were talking about functional medicine, and he's now understanding. He said, if I would have known this years ago, I would be a person or doc that was involved in functional medicine. And now he's doing a different aspect of medicine. He was an OBGYN, and now he's doing aesthetics. So he's doing a lot of different restructuring of women's bodies, which is kind of interesting because I think a lot of that is tied to self-esteem. And so anyway, so we're having this discussion, and I said, the difference is in allopathic medicine and where medicine is at today, and we need both realms. You need a really good practice. But I think what's happened is that with allopathic medicine, we look at the body in segments. We don't look at the totality of the body. We look at, you have a heart specialist, and you have a brain specialist, and you have a stomach specialist, and you have a woman specialist or a man specialist, but you don't integrate the whole piece. And what I said to him was, in nursing, which is really interesting, is the difference in my nursing background is the nurse looks at the whole body, mind, body, spirit. And so there's a very different treatment. We don't segment it into having a psychiatrist and a psychologist. We look at the whole aspect. So there's a very different way that we learn. Now, if we look at functional medicine, which is where more of that integration falls in, it's again looking at that whole individual and looking at how do we treat that whole individual, which is a lot of your, I think, different integrative pieces. Which are often older. You look at acupuncture, and acupuncture is a medicine that's based in over 5,000 years of practice. And when you look at those types of modalities of treatment, what they're really looking at is they're really looking at the underlying characteristics of healing, and healing as a whole is based in nutrition. And that's interesting because when you really look at muscle testing, and then you look at the different aspects of that, and even in Chinese medicine or Touch for Health, you're looking at the different components of what drives that body. So you're not just looking at the heart, you're looking at the heart, the emotions in the heart, you're looking at perhaps the colors of the heart, the energy of the heart, the nutrition in the heart, and how that interrelates with everything else. And so when you look at all of that, it becomes that connected whole. And I don't know if we really truly understand that, not only in medicine, because we're so segmented oftentimes, because I don't know if it's because we don't have the time or if it's become so specialized. But the other piece of it is that I think that's what's driving this other piece so much, is to really look at that person and look at the integrated whole piece of the individual. You know, the whole, there's a saying, is it the whole is greater than some of its parts, right? You know, because it's more than just one piece. We're getting sirens now. I guess it's really a hot conversation because the sirens coming in the background along with my bird.
You know, what I'm hearing you say too, though, is that it's up to us to reconnect with these vital pieces of ourselves rather than leaving them for someone else to check up on. And as you shared, your own integrative journey was about reconnecting with your body, having us individually connect with the parts of our body that we don't see. And I'm wondering, with all of that being said, what's the number one thing you want people to know about muscle testing and their body?
Oh, I think the number one thing is to, you know, what I tell people all the time, and I apologize for the dings because I thought I turned it off, but apparently I did not. But anyway, the thing that I think is really important in all of this is that understanding that the body is trying to always communicate with you. And the other piece that's really important is I think when it communicates the loudest is when there's something wrong with it. And that's when we start to listen to it. And otherwise, it just goes about doing its own work all the time. With muscle testing, I really trust that the body is so very wise, and that it's much wiser than we are. It has its own innate wisdom. And it's really allowing the practitioner, when you're working with someone, and it's really not passing, the practitioner shouldn't be passing judgment or making an opinion about where your body is at. But the practitioner is tapping into that body, utilizing a methodology of treatment to really connect, to allow the body to talk for itself. And so I think the interesting part of it is that it's really, truly very scientific. And because it's misunderstood oftentimes, I think that what happens, and when you really get into the methodologies of treatment, there's specific protocols and pathways and purposes of when you utilize different kinds of nutritional products. And you can even utilize, you know, I was making a point with this doctor I was working with, and I didn't have anything with me to really muscle test. So I picked up his cup of coffee, and he'd been drinking coffee all day long. And I utilized the methodology of the O-ring testing, which is the muscle testing on a different aspect with the hands. And what he did is, when he took this coffee, there's a testing on when you can't get with the O-ring, you can't get the fingers apart. They test solid. And they connect. And when the body knows that it needs something, you can't unlock that lock on the hand. And it was really interesting because I muscle tested him, figured out which hand we needed to use, and then gave him a cup of coffee, and he tested off. And I looked at him and I said, "You've had way too much coffee today." And he just looked at me and he said, "What are you talking about? I drink coffee all day long." And I said, "Well, you need to switch to more water or something else, because your body's telling me you've had enough coffee today." But it's that subtle awareness with people that they don't really, you know, they understand it, I think, at an innate level inside. They kind of connect and they get it, but it's like it mystifies them on some level to have it done. And it's interesting to really do it and really understand it. But I think when you start to really add good nutrition and you get people to a better place, or patients to a better place, and that's what I did. I mean, when I started my own journey with this, and I can remember walking away from it because I thought, this is crazy. I'm taking all these pills and I'm doing all these things, and I'm doing mud packs and I'm doing castor oil packs and I'm doing all these things. And yet I was starting to feel better. and my energy levels were coming up. And so I would come back to it because I was really feeling better. And as I was doing this, the interesting thing about it is that not only did I connect to my body, but I really started to create an awareness about what I was doing in my own life, and how I looked at my own life, and how I really looked at what was important to me as far as, employing different things that would help me feel better, meditation and yoga and, different kinds of treatments. The education continued from that inception with Suzanne. So it's been years and years and years of studying and practice and really working with others. When I first started doing my own practice with muscle testing, I did it with all the nurses in the office I was working in. And because I didn't know what I was doing. So I'd gotten this kit and I went about and I started this. And that's where my practice arose from. And what's interesting to me is that, in fact, I have one of my cancer patients right now. And she said when she first started it, she said, now she gets up and her body wants the nutrition. And she can tell which pieces of the nutrition her body needs. And so I think we don't really understand or connect to it. It's like you think about a craving that you have, in your body, because your body's asking for something and we need to fulfill that craving, right? We've got to figure out why we're doing that. But when we really look at the body's all nutrition. It's all driven by nutrition. And we don't really understand that, Anyway.
It's fascinating to hear you share that too, and the evolution of how we can become, like your patient, more in tune to those subtle signals so that we can really feed our body the energy it needs to sustain us. And I'm wondering, because you incorporate muscle testing now into your own practice, and I'm wondering what benefits you find with that added piece now, seeing people. Also, do you see a place for muscle testing in the medical model future?
Oh, I certainly do. And I think that's why I always say there's divinity in everything that I do. That I got called into nursing because I really had a convoluted path to getting there, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I'm kind of in that process right now of figuring out where I want to go and what I want to do. And I know that this allows me, the time that I have right now allows me the purpose of finding that introduction to others. And, the doors open to people understanding, and, patients just find me. I don't do a lot of advertising. I will start. But it's interesting, what I find when I test people is that they understand on a level. And at first, it's like there's that inner critic that comes out, that skeptic that comes forward, that it's like, well, you're not doing it the same, or, whatever it is you're doing, there's this constant, there's like a challenge. I'll do my kids, and my kids are like trying to out-muscle me, which is kind of funny, because they think that they'll be able to out-muscle me, and then they'll disprove me and all that kind of stuff. And it's really interesting, because when the body understands what the body in it knows, it's really intriguing to me to watch it adapt to what it needs to have. So really what we don't understand, I think, and it's even in medicine. The other thing that's really, I think, interesting, and this is this discussion I've had with more than one doctor, is that in medical school, they get nothing on nutrition at all. And I just had this discussion. I was out on my bike the other day, and it was interesting because I ran into a gentleman that I knew from the time I was growing up. And his dad was a general practitioner, old school doc. And old school docs were really good because they got all of it. But his mom was a nutritionist. And it was really interesting because he said, because his dad was a great diagnostician. And I said that to him. I said, your dad was a great diagnostician. And a diagnostician is somebody, it's like a detective, right? You're going to figure out what's wrong. And he said to me in this conversation, he said it was really interesting because it always came back to nutrition, which was his mom. But in medical school, there's no nutrition. In nursing school, we had I had a semester of it. So I understood the biochemistry, and I had to take biochemistry before I took nutrition. So I understood how the body functioned at that level. So it was interesting. So you don't really understand, what we're doing. And it's so complicated and convoluted now with where our food is at, that we don't, and it's so convenient that we don't take the time to really look at quality. It gets very confusing. But we don't really truly understand that what we're really looking at is that's our life source. And in Chinese medicine, back to what I was going to say before, Chinese medicine, the premise to healing in Chinese medicine is nutrition. That's where you start. You start with the good nutrition or the herbs or whatever it is that is coming forward. It's like this big push with CBD and marijuana and all these different things that are coming forward, that they're a natural plant. When you look at the premise of where our plants came from, our medicine came from originally, our medicinal pharmaceutical properties came from plants. And so they were created. So when you really look at what we are, we go to that plant world, to really heal and sustain us, because that's where our nutrition is. So it's kind of interesting to know these things, or to understand these things, and the capacity. I'm so sorry. The capacity of where all of this is at is really, I think, engaging and intriguing. And I think there's too much. We're inundated by so much right now that it's too easy to access all these other things. And it's so much fun when you have really good food. But I think you have to get to a point where you allow your body, and that's what muscle testing does. It opens up the awareness, the connection, so that you can start. That's what it did for me. I always thought I was pretty healthy because I had a garden and I had all these different things. And as my life got busier, as I got into nursing, and I had to shortcut things because I didn't have the time. So then you look for the conveniences of things, right? Because that makes it easier. If we're looking for the conveniences of things because we're time saving, and I'm raising a family and I'm cooking and I'm doing those things, but then you start to shortcut things, and then, what do we sacrifice in that process? And then we look at our food industry, and we look at the changes in our food industry, and that's another whole discussion for another day. But when we get into that whole process of quality, and I think that's what the body's looking for. And when you really get into muscle testing and understanding, it's even like the different nutrient products, right? They're not all made the same. And so there's really an important understanding as to what you put into your body, and then specifically understanding that there are different things that the body truly needs, and we're not all the same biochemically. We all walk around and we kind of look the same, but we're not the same biochemically. And so muscle testing aligns with that, and it really gives you an individual treatment plan designed for the patient so that they can specifically delve into what their body needs. And it's really tapping into that wisdom and really aligning with that so that you can develop a plan of care to give them exactly what they need, which is really important.
You bring up so many awesome points, and the key here is to individualize it. How can people reach out to you if they want to connect? You do work over the phone as well.
I do work over the phone. I can do a Zoom like this. We can do a conference like this, a video conference. I come to people's homes if you're close to the area. So I'm in Kenosha, so I will reach out and do that. But I like video chats because I think you learn it that way. We'll have a website up and running soon under Misch Inspired Health. And so I'm working on it, so it's getting there. So I will be able to do blood work and that type of thing as well, because I think a lot of times what people need to understand is not only the muscle testing piece, but I also think that because we come from that traditional medical model, and I think it's important to understand even from that level that if you have blood work done at a reduced cost, because I can do it inexpensively, and have a consultation built into that it's understanding what your body's actually doing. It's another way to look at what the body does. muscle testing is another way to do that. And I really trust muscle testing. I've found things, muscle testing, that when people have gone and gotten scans, they found cancer. But I found it, didn't know at the time by the nutrients that I was using, that what I had found, which was really interesting. And it came out from the symptomology of the person because they were so resistant to Western medicine. And that was interesting because it was really, and I can remember really advocating that they had to go get seen because it was beyond what I could do. And it's knowing your limitations in it. But she was at a point where she really had to go seek out medical attention because she was that far along. The goal of this is to get to you before that happens. And that's prevention, right? It's really about lifestyle. If you look at 90% of disease, it's really lifestyle.
Lynn, I'm so glad. I know we could talk for days, and we do. And for anyone interested in tuning in, you also host series of videos, and I'm really just excited for everything you're doing to reach out and provide that outreach to healthcare providers, self-care professionals, and anyone curious enough to tap into and know more about their own body intelligence. And before we go, is there anything else you want to share?
No, I just had I love seeing your lovely face. How fun. It's
Thank
just,
you.
This is fun, I think, because we're both really passionate about this. And I think it's being in service to others and showing them that, we're here for them and we're here to support them in their journey with living a better life, I think. And so it's just unlayering it so that they can feel better. And that's really important. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And until next time, embrace your body's brilliance. Bye for now.
Love it. Bye.